So I did a piece the other day about how I'm tired of all this talk of revolution, and here's something that I consider to be crucial to our evolution. It's something I've only recently been introduced to. I'm by no means an expert, and so I'm just wanting to summarise what I've learnt here for those people that are still also totally new to this. Contract law doesn't sound like a very interesting subject, but it seems to me absolutely fundamental to our liberation is understanding a little bit about this. And it's simple, it's really, really simple. A contract has 4 elements to it. It has an offer and an acceptance. It must have the full disclosure of all the terms and conditions of the contract. It must have what they call equal consideration. And then there's a 4th one which I can never remember. So, one of the really important ones, 2 wet signatures, but then that's not essential because lots of contracts are verbal. And one of the doorways into understanding this for me was the fact that we are all contracting with each other all the time. When someone makes us an offer of anything at all, we've entered into a contract, or we're about to enter into a contract, and how we deal with that really shapes the nature of our reality on the deepest sense. So we have contracts in our personal relationships, our sexual relationships, in our business relationships. It really just goes so deep you can't imagine. Now then, when I say to you, how are you? I'm making you an offer. And how you choose to respond stipulates where this contract is going to go. And there are 4 responses to every offer. And in contract law, they're described as having 2 honourable and 2 dishonourable responses. The 2 honourable responses are pure acceptance. So I offer you something and you say, yes, please, thank you very much. The second one is conditional acceptance, which means, okay, I accept what you're saying, but I'll accept it on the basis of these conditions. So you enter into a negotiation. And the 2 dishonourable ways of dealing with contracts are silence and dispute. Dispute means you start questioning and reviling, but without actually seeking a resolution. You dispute the nature of the offer. Okay, so if this sounds a little bit oblique, basically, for me, it seems that the thing that's new to me, really, is this idea of conditional acceptance. Okay, I accept what you're asking me to do or what you're offering me, on the condition that you can just explain it a bit more. And this relates to somebody pointed out recently that when we are asking questions, we are as king. We are asking, and therefore we are as king. And to maintain our sovereignty, we have to ask questions to define what it is people are actually offering us. Now, there's all sorts of different contracts in life, and one of the important things is, how do we deal with our contracts? Do we deal with them honourably or dishonourably? And a brilliant example I've enjoyed for explaining this is the idea of an implied contract. We're constantly forming implied contracts with people in our lives, and an implied contract is a good example of that. Is when you go into a restaurant. When you walk into a restaurant, and you sit down at a table, there's an implied contract. The restaurant serves food for money, so you've walked in the door, so you've implied that you are contracting with that particular place. Now, in every contract, there's 2 roles. There is the creditor and there is the debtor. Now, these roles actually change all the time. You're not fixed as one or the other in any contract. The creditor is the person who is waiting for the other person to perform on the contract. So, when I walk into a restaurant and I sit down at a table, I've implied that I'm asking them for some food, and so I've become the creditor. I'm waiting for them to perform on the contract. They come and take my order, they serve my food, at which point they become the creditor because they are now waiting for me to perform on the contract, which is to pay money. Once I've paid, I then become the creditor again, and I'm waiting for them to provide me with a receipt. And so this is how it goes. Now, one of the problems that we've had in society is that banks and stuff send us letters and we are always the debtor. But this is like a word play that gets us into thinking that we are indebted to people. And in fact, one of the basic tenets of contract law is that all contracts are dynamic and the roles are constantly switching. So, by dynamic, I mean they're constantly moving. Nothing, even when it's written in paper, is ever written in stone. Everything can be challenged. The nature of contracts is that they have to move. So, when I talked about those 4 tenets at the beginning of contract law, and I talked about equal consideration, this is one of the things that people, or certainly for me, was new to me and really has helped me a great deal. Understanding that both parties in a contract have to contribute something. So in an employment contract, one person offers their time, another person offers their money. And as such, they perform on this contract, alternating between paying the money, doing the work, paying the money, creditor and debtor, constantly switching backwards and forwards. So, in life, say in our personal relationship, someone says, "How are you?" At that moment, that person has become the creditor. And it's up for us to decide how it is we're going to deal with that offer. Now, we could accept and just say, "I'm great, thank you." That's an honourable means of dealing with the contract. A second way would be a conditional acceptance. So it's like saying, "I will agree to perform on this contract for you as long as you're willing to do something too." So we could flip the question straight back to them. "How are you?" They're the 2 honourable methods. The dishonourable methods of dealing with that particular offer are silence. So if I say, "How are you?" and you just go totally silent on me, no connection whatsoever. Is that honourable? My sense is that's a dishonourable way to go. Certainly that is how it's defined in contract law. The other way is to refute it or to dispute it. So somebody says, "How are you?" and you go, Why would you want to know? What's this all about?" Is that dishonourable? Is that making connection? Now, the thing is, if we are trying to connect together as a species, we have to learn to deal with each other honourably, which is basically in the moving towards resolution and connection. So my sense is that a lot of the, as I've discovered this contract law stuff in the context of the free man on the land movement, and the funny thing is that there's lots of people who are in court and in their letters and their to and fro's between authorities using a hell of a lot of dispute and a lot of silence, and that's not helping us to gain a greater understanding of each other. But what I'm seeing is lots of people who are having an enormous success in all of their contracts, both with each other on a personal level and in like dealings with banks and governments and all sorts of businesses, is through conditional acceptance. So somebody says, "I want you to pay your taxes." You say, "Okay, I totally agree, I'm happy to pay you my taxes. Could you please just substantiate the fact that they're not being used to kill people and oppress people and pollute the planet?" And the thing is, if somebody doesn't come back to you with a genuine response, if they can't answer the questions, they've dishonoured the contract. And the thing is, most authorities and most businesses actually do completely dishonour us. Now, why is this interesting in the path to our liberation? Well, the thing is, in court, which is what most people are really afraid of, in court, he who dishonours loses. He who cannot substantiate their claims loses. So if you have tried to honourably engage with an administrative process with the person who's been taking you to court, and if you stand there as a sovereign being, as a plaintiff, with total heart and humility asking questions that they refuse to answer, you cannot lose. Now, people might say that sounds all very well in principle, but is that the way it really works? Well, I'm going to give it a try.